Hello students. First chapter, that is the living world. In that we have seen the basic principles of life. First, second, our point that is started. That one is the taxonomic aids. Means taxonomic helps to classify the organism. Okay. Now there are 6 taxonomic helps or tools to classify the living organism. Now in that, the first one we have computed, that is called the herbarium. Herbarium, we can make the herbarium sheet. Then second one is the botanical garden. This is the second point that we will learn in this video. Botanical garden. Already we know the means a garden. Garden, there is the different types of plants. General thinking about the garden. There is the different types of plants. There is the plants which grows in that gardens. There is the grass that we very well know. That is a general common term. That is a garden. But here is the specific word given, the botanical. Botanical means there is the botany. Botany means there is only the plants. Now the proper definition of botanical garden is here. This is the definition: place where different plants, where plants of different varieties. Place where plants of different varieties collected from different parts of the world. Collected from different parts of the world. That is called the botanical garden. Suppose we bring one of the plants from the Japan country and that grows in our India. That makes the botanical gardens. Suppose any foreign from countries, we can brought the plants and that grown on our country and to make the botanical gardens. Then why the purpose of this botanical garden? It is important for the scientific study of that plants. While we are developing the botanical gardens, here are some points that those plants grow in a botanical garden. They have the scientific name. Scientific name, that is the genus and species name, that we call the scientific name. And systemic in vivo manner. In vivo means that is in the garden, that is in an open place. Open place. Suppose this is the area where we have to develop a botanical garden. Now we are here is one of the plant, another, third, fourth, 5 plants. Like that way we can grow whole area under these plants. Now on this, the scientific name is very important for the each and every plants, and common name there is also very important. In systemic in vivo. In vivo means outside the home, in an open space, in a particular area, that is called the in vivo. Now plants are labeled. Labeling, we have to, labeling means give a name to the plants. This is the stem of any plants. On that stem there is the plate that we call the name plate of that plant. In that there is a scientific name of plant and common name of plant. Both names are put on this plate and that plate is hang on this stem. That is the way to develop a botanical garden. Now in our India there is a number of botanical gardens, near about 36 botanical gardens. How many? 36 botanical garden. And purpose of the botanical garden to study the development of the plant. How that plants developed, what is the function of that plant parts that can be studied in the botanical garden. That is the second botanical garden, that is the second taxonomic tools. Now third one, that we call the museums. Museums, that is very interesting tool to study the taxonomy. That is in botanical garden we can study the diversity of plants. There are different types of the plants. That plants can be studied in the botanical garden. Always we cannot go to the forest to study the plants or any other place. In the botanical gardens, all the plants varieties they can collect it at one place, and that is very simply we can study the plant. The next one is the museum. Museum, it is also the one of the tools to study the diversity of the plants and animals. Then what is the museum? Here again the definition of museum: place where collection of preserved place where collection of preserved means we can preserve the material. Place where collection of preserved what? Plant and animal specimen are kept. This is the museum. Museum is the place where collection of preserved plants and animal specimen are kept. In botanical garden we are only collecting only the plants, different varieties of plants from the different countries. We can collect it in the botanical garden. But in a museum we can preserve the plant as well as animal specimen. Specimen, that is one of the common thing that we can collect. Common thing means that is the नमुना, ज्याला की आपण मराठीमध्ये काय म्हणतो, नमुना म्हणतो, स्पेसिमन, just for the to see how that animals look like or how that plant is look like, that is we call the specimen that can be preserved. This is the definition of museum. Then plant and animals that are preserved in a solution, that solution is called the formalin. Preserved in which solution? That we call the formalin. Formalin, it is one of the solution, and that formalin contains the formaldehyde, that contains formaldehyde chemical. In that chemical, that plant material and the animal material can be preserved. Now this formalin that contains the formaldehyde, how 10 to 40%, how much formaldehyde required? 10 to 40% just, and we can preserve the plant and animal specimen. In the transparent jars, suppose this is the jar, this jar having the formalin. In that formalin, this is the suppose any plant material that can be put in that jar, and that is called the specimen. We can study in our lab. Jars are labeled. There is a labeling which type of the specimen, which types of the plant or which types of animals that can be labeled on this jar. Now this is about the plant material and the animal. Suppose there is a large animal like birds, then how can we preserve the birds? Or any mammals, how can we preserve the mammals? That mammals or that birds can be also preserved by using another method, that is called the taxidermy method. Taxidermy method. By this method we can preserve the large animals like birds and mammals also. How we can preserve these large birds and mammals? By the stuffed method. After stuffing they can preserve. That what is the meaning of stuffed? Stuffed means that animal or bird is filled with a special material. Animal and birds that are filled with special material, suppose cotton we can fill in that animal body, or suppose any other papers like we can fill, so that it keeps the shape as it is. When we put all this inside the body of that animal or that bird, it looks like the same, but that is not alive, that is a dead animal, that is a dead mammal or bird, but it looks like that is called the stuffed. Then this taxidermy is used for the large animals, remember that one. And this what formalin solution, or that we call formaldehyde, used for the plant specimen or animal specimen which are small. Small material can be preserved with the help of that formalin, and large material of the plants and animals can be stored by this taxidermy. Now that specimen in a dried form are also kept in the museum. Dried form specimen, suppose a skeleton of this dinosaur, that can be preserved in the museum. There is the museum. So the role of these, we can also storing the collection of cells, skeleton of animals, insect boxes in the museum, how that insect boxes mean, suppose making a box. In that box we are putting the insect for our for our study purpose. Skeleton of animals. In our lab there is a human skeleton. We can study the skeleton of the humans by the different bones, where the how the bones are joined to each other. That can be collected in the museum. That is the fourth taxonomic aids. Now, biological museum, that is very important for our educational purpose. In our educational purpose, these museums or this botanical garden or herbariums are very important. Why? To study the biodiversity of nature. In nature, there is the different types of plants, animals are present. We cannot study each and every plants. We cannot study. So that plants and animals can be studied in the lab, can be studied in the botanical garden, can be studied in the museum. By making the herbarium seed, we can study the plant material. These all things are very important to study the biodiversity. Biodiversity means what? The variety of animals and plants present in the environment that can be studied. That is called the biodiversity. This is the third, museum. That one is the museum. These points, remember, herbarium, botanical gardens and museum. These points we have completed. Now next one is the zoo. That is we call the zoological parks. In zoological parks we know that there is the wild animals which are kept. In zoological parks there is a keeping the wild animal. That is a very interesting for the common person. Zoological park is very interesting for the common person. In zoo, wild animals are kept in a captivity. Captivity means they are in a prisoned in a particular way. That animals are protected and they are their similar condition like a natural habitat, that we call the ex situ. In a zoo, the naturalist can be study food habits and behavior of that animals. In a zoo, we can study the animals, different types of animals, how their behavior, what they eat. That can be studied in the zoological parks. This is about the taxonomical aids. Then next, biodiversity parks and keys, that we will see in the next. Remember the zoological parks. Okay, thank you.